Well, hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. What in the world is going on in Washington? Oh, wait, nothing. They're on vacation. The Capitol is a ghost town. And what? We do not have one, and I mean not one Doge-related bill. So I saw a tweet by Marjorie Taylor Greene that says maybe Monday we're going to get our first Doge bill. Fine. Why wasn't Doge cuts at least put into this big, beautiful bill? Why aren't we talking now about Doge cuts? Why isn't the Congressional Budget Office taking the $2 billion in savings that we're told is happening every day and figuring that into the budget projections, deficit projections, and deficit projections? It's like they're ignoring what's going on when it comes to Doge. And to me, it's tremendously frustrating because as much as I voted for President Trump, and remember, Doge is his idea. So by not codifying Doge, we're really going against what President Trump wants. And I'm sure he would love to see these cuts codified in law. But as much as I voted for President Trump, I also voted for the cuts that needed to come along with his Doge team, which goes for Elon Musk. So now Elon Musk says he's going to be stepping down because his time as a special government employee is up. The amount of days he can work ends at the end of this month. And so Elon says he's stepping down, and I think he's frustrated. Well, we're going to go through why Congress is failing to act on the Doge cuts. And it comes down to one simple thing. They don't like to vote. They don't like to vote on anything. Why? Because it shows us where they really stand. And that is something that needs to change in Washington, no doubt about it. So we're going to get into that. Then I'm going to go through the Dan Bongino interview and Kash Patel interview. Specifically, Dan Bongino's I found fascinating on Fox this morning. I'm going to play the entire interview, and we'll do some commentary in between the clips because I've got some concerns, and these are my friends, Kash and Dan. Both I consider friends. I can't say that about everybody in Washington. I can about these two men. I know they're patriots. I know they're committed. So there must be something behind what's going on with, well, not living up to the expectations that we held for them. I'll say that. And, maybe you'll accuse me of covering for them. I don't know. But I'm going to go through this interview. We'll talk about everything. We'll talk about what we really want to see and maybe why we're not seeing it, specifically with Epstein. So we're going to talk a lot about that today as well. Before we get into all of this, folks, I want to tell you about Patriot Protect. Look, these are some real concerns I have. And I'm going to tell you that there is breaking news that this DeepSeek, China's AI data scraping company, it has suffered a massive breach, dumping millions of personal information, highly sensitive American records onto the dark web. It includes names, email addresses, birth dates, work histories, other things. So if you think you weren't affected, I want you to think again. DeepSeek gathered information without your permission, okay? And it leaked it without your knowledge. So it's not just a password leak either. This is the kind of information criminals can use to hijack your accounts, destroy your finances, or worse. So Patriot Protect's blackout service searches the dark web, finds out if your information was leaked, and removes it from the people's search site scammers use to hunt for victims. I've already been using this, and I'm already seeing the results. Their search and destroy protocol wipes out your personal information from hundreds of data broker sites and consistently and constantly monitors them for new threats, all for about the same cost of keeping your porch lit. So don't wait until you're the next victim. Take action today. It's Patriot Protect. Go to patriot-protect.com/grant. Patriot-protect.com/grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 15% off. All right, with that, folks, let's get the show started.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
All right, welcome, everybody. So as frustrated as you are that the Doge cuts for waste, fraud, abuse, I believe they've uncovered criminal activity. is not being codified into law legislatively. That President Trump can't do it all on his own with executive orders because, as we've seen, if he wants to do away with the Department of Education, if he wants to do away with USAID, another president, God forbid we get a Democrat in next time around, can come in and reinstate all of those things. We need laws on the books to give us a level of protection of this waste, fraud, and abuse, especially the funding of radical agendas not being instituted again. This is what we voted for, and not doing it is a dereliction of duty on behalf of Congress. I know President Trump wants it. Now, so let me play a clip from you from Elon Musk talking about, well, what can only be described as disappointment that Doge cuts are not in that big, beautiful bill.
I was disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the Doge team is doing.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along. I mean, everything he's done on Doge gets wiped out in the first year.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but I don't know if it can be both. My personal opinion.
Well, look, in the eyes of conservatives, okay, certainly before President Trump, no one likes big bills. We don't like big bills. I want individual items voted on so everything can't be lumped into one. But as President Trump says, we needed the votes. This was his plan. So I'm willing to give grace to President Trump, and I'm willing to trust his judgment on how best to run the country and get this stuff through. But I hear what Elon Musk is saying. I'm not sure you can have big and beautiful in one breath. I think Elon is now starting to think like real MAGA conservatives, what I would call Tea Party conservatives, that we want a limited government. And so this bill does not seem to take into account many of the Doge cuts. Now that it's passed Congress, why is Congress on vacation this week as the Senate takes up the big, beautiful bill? Why isn't Congress working on a Doge-related bill? Why isn't Congress taking up maybe one bill to say we're doing away with USAID, vote on it, push it through the Senate? One bill, say we're doing away with the Department of Education, vote on it, push it through the Senate. President Trump's going to sign these. Why don't we go through and say any grant money and codify the president's ability to stop grant money? I believe he already has it, but make it known that if Congress passes money to an agency, okay, because let's think about what happens with grant money. Congress passes a certain amount of money that then goes to the agency. The agency decides what to do with it. Some of it may be allocated towards grants and research, but the agency decides. Congress isn't voting on every single project that's applied for to get federal grant money. The agency is. But we need to codify in law that the president has the sole ability to cancel any grant that he wants. And that needs to be codified into law so we don't have this judicial warfare that goes on over and over and over again. So, again, this is another clip from Elon Musk talk about where he stands on this.
The ability of Doge to operate is a function of whether the government, and this includes the Congress, is willing to take our advice. We're not the dictators of the government; we are the advisors. And so we can advise, and the progress we've made thus far, I think, is incredible. The Doge team has done incredible work, but the magnitude of the savings is proportionate to the support we get from Congress.
You hear what he's saying? You can't have the savings without support from Congress. You can't make the changes. Now, President Trump can try, and then it gets held up in court and all these things. But if Congress would do their job, if Congress would spring into action, these are some of the most important things that can be done. But what does Congress hate? Congress hates to vote. They don't want to vote on these things. One, I think secretly even Republicans love the money being doled out because it gives them power with the lobbyists. Where the money gets doled out provides how much money they take in from these lobbyists. The other side of this is they don't want to be held accountable. Every time you have to vote, you are being held accountable. Congress and members of Congress hate to vote because it is an accountability action. And they don't like that. So we're in this position where he comes up with all these cuts. We find the waste, fraud, and abuse, and it just sits out there. We get all excited about it, and then it just goes away. Like the audit of Fort Knox. Watch yesterday's podcast.
And from the executive branch of the government in general. So we're not the dictators, we are the advisors. But thus far, for advisors, the Doge team, to their credit, has made incredible progress.
All right.
You talked about $4 billion a day being saved.
Yes, and that is what we want. Now, last I was told it was $2 billion. I don't know, $2 billion, $4 billion. You throw around these numbers. If it's $4 billion, great. If it's $2 billion, great. But I want people to take that into account when we are trying to make decisions on things. And yet it's not taken into account. So as frustrated as people are, President Trump was asked about this. Elon Musk basically criticized the big, beautiful bill. He did. And this is President Trump's, I don't know, it seems like he's President Trump's best friend. He's everywhere President Trump goes. He's hanging out at Mar-a-Lago. He's hanging out at the White House. He's so instrumental in getting all these cuts in. I think President Trump loves the guy. I really do. And then Elon criticizes the big, beautiful bill. I'm not sure I would, but I guess if you're the world's richest man, you can do whatever you want. Anyway, President Trump was asked about it.
Mr. President, Elon Musk in a television interview criticized the one big, beautiful bill, saying he was disappointed it didn't cut enough, essentially, that it undercut the Doge efforts. What's your reaction to that?
Well, the reaction's a lot of things. Number one, we have to get a lot of votes. We can't be cutting. We need to get a lot of support, and we have a lot of support. We had to get it through the House. The House was. We have no Democrats. If it's up to the Democrats, they'll take the 65% increase. If that doesn't get approved, this country is going to have a 65% increase in taxes and lots of other problems, big problems.
So what President Trump is saying is that, look, President Trump's a strategist, he's a businessman, and more importantly, he's a realist. So, yes, I would love all of the Doge cuts in the big, beautiful bill, but as he said, it wasn't going to pass. Because we have some rhino Republicans that wouldn't vote for it. We know not one Democrat will vote for it simply because it has President Trump's name on it. So we are where we are on that front. And we've got to get through whatever we can, because he is right. The Trump tax cuts are the most important piece of legislation right now. Our economy will tank if we do not get those tax cuts extended. That is something that we do not need. In fact, I wish that the tax cuts were pushed through before the tariffs. We're going to talk about the tariffs, too, as well. They hit a little bit of a roadblock, but we'll see how that plays out. Markets ho-hum on that. They basically seem unchanged as of the live version of this podcast, which is, what time is it now? It's about 12:30 Eastern time on Thursday. So I'm going to play a little bit more from President Trump because I think it's important that you hear from him. But before I do that, I want to tell you, if you're concerned about the stock market, if you're concerned about the direction of where cryptocurrencies are going, how about you lock into an investment at a 20% annualized interest rate? Okay? I don't like the swings of Bitcoin, but I do know it's a place for my money to be. So that's what get20now.com is all about. It's about locking in to a Bitcoin mining facility, many of them, by the way, that NFN8, that's the name of the company, are building around the country. They can mine Bitcoin cheaper. They can cool these machines quicker than anybody else can, which allows them, again, to mine Bitcoin quicker and cheaper. And for your investment with them, they will pay you a 20%, up to 20% annualized interest rate, paid monthly, direct deposited into your account. I have made what I would consider a sizable investment with them. They have lived up to their promises with me. Do I urge you to do your homework? Of course. Talk to these guys. They have nothing to hide. They are good people over there. I know them personally. I know Corey, who you'll get a call from. He's one of the leaders of the company. And listen, go to the website, sign up. Get20now.com. That's get20now.com. Up to 20% annualized interest on your investment, paid monthly direct deposit. I don't know where you can get that, where you lock in. It's great. And so get20now.com, pay them a visit. All right, more from President Trump.
Almost bigger than that. But we'll have a 65% increase as opposed to the largest tax cut in the history of our country. We will be negotiating that bill, and I'm not happy about certain aspects of it, but I'm thrilled by other aspects of it. That's the way they go. It's very big. It's the big, beautiful bill. But the beautiful is because of all of the things we have. The biggest thing being, I would say, the level of tax cutting that we're going to be doing. We're going to make people really be able to. We'll have the lowest tax rate we've ever had in the history of our country, and tremendous amounts of benefit are going to the middle-income people of our country, low and middle-income people of our country. So we're going to see what happens, because the Senate, as you know, is negotiating with us, and they have to then go back to the House, and, you know, it's got a way to go. But I have to say, Speaker Johnson and Thune have done an incredible job. John Thune has done a fantastic job, and they're working together with me and others. And I think we have an amazing, if we pull this off, remember, we have 0 Democrat votes because they're bad people. There's something wrong with them. You know, they'll let people pour into our country. Single biggest problem is we had 21 million people pour into our country, probably higher than that. And they're people that weren't supposed to be here. And many of those people are bad. Murderers, drug dealers, the mentally insane. They were closing mental institutions all over the world, not South America, all over the world. They're coming into our country, and we're getting them out. And we're having a hard time because some judges aren't making it very easy for us, and it's tough enough. They approved that. They allowed that to happen to our country.
You see what President Trump did? He totally pivoted off of Elon Musk, which is fine. The question was, Elon's criticizing the big, beautiful bill. It doesn't get into enough cuts. President Trump is hopeful the cuts will come in other bills. We're told that they will. Okay. The question then becomes when. I'll tell you, there's some real reasons why we need cuts. Let's go back down memory lane. Let's think about what the Doge team found.
The sheer amount of waste and fraud in the government. It is astonishing. It's mind-blowing. We routinely encounter wastes of $1 billion or more, casually. For example, like the simple survey that was literally 10-question survey that you could do with SurveyMonkey, cost you about $10,000. Was the government was being charged almost $1 billion for that.
For just the survey?
$1 billion for a simple online survey. Do you like the national park? And then there appeared to be no feedback loop for what would be done with that survey. So the survey would just go into nothing. It was like insane.
So, look, SurveyMonkey is a great example. You go online, they'll make the surveys for you. You're paying consultants millions of dollars for this stuff. And this was the case down the line, every single agency just wasting money. From a bureaucrat in D.C. to a bureaucrat in any other city across the country, they don't look at it as their money. They need to remember it is their money, too. You know, they pay taxes, but they don't care. It's like an unlimited spigot that they just turn it on and the water flows. Again, let's remember what the Doge team found.
Weapons in their armory. We found the payments to the Taliban.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
So
they try to hide the evidence.
Right. So just a few hours after we got into their headquarters, we found that their chief accountant had actually deleted over 1 terabyte of accounting records from several years. So
you hear what he's saying? They found payments going to the Taliban. The Taliban is the enemy of America. They are responsible for killing American service members and American citizens. Yet we're sending the Taliban money. Then he gets in and he finds that they're hiding and tried to delete documentation of all of this. That's not a government working for the people.
You'd have to ask the question, well, why would somebody do that? The Doge team, fortunately, was able to recover that data with the help of a few great employees at the Institute of Peace. And I think the most troubling thing was they received $55 million a year from Congress, and any money that went unspent, instead of returning that to Congress, they would sweep it into a private bank account, which had no congressional oversight. And that's what they would use to fund things like events at their headquarters and the private jets. And so I think it's a great example because most Americans don't know what's going on at a lot of these smaller agencies. And this is.
Can you imagine You get $55 million a year to a tiny agency. I believe he's talking about USAID. Tiny agency. They don't use all the money. Let's put $10 million here, $15 million here this year into a private bank account that then they can use for private jet travel and parties at headquarters. Who knows how many fancy dinners. They probably had a credit card attached to it for nothing. They don't need to be flying private. It's just a waste of money. And if you start adding up all the agencies that were doing things like this is where we get to the savings of billions of dollars a day.
I think the most extreme case of some of the wasteful spend that we're finding.
So the agencies are hiding money from you. They're sending it to the Taliban. They have loaded weapons in the department buildings.
At the Institute of Peace.
At the Institute of Peace.
Yes.
That's right.
So this is a cover-up when you guys roll in.
This one, yes, they cover up. Yeah.
It's a cover-up.
They did delete a vast amount of financial information. That's really a definition of a cover-up.
Isn't that illegal to delete evidence?
Yes.
Shred documents?
It is. It's certainly illegal to delete accounting records that that Congress would certainly want to know where the congressionally appropriated funds are going.
So, again, right now, as we speak, you could pull in right in front of Congress, and there's nobody there. It's a ghost town. Wouldn't it be nice if Congress started investigating this? Who deleted this information at the Institute for Peace, of all places? We're not getting any answers on that front. Now, here's the one interesting thing. Well, there's a few interesting things, but this is interesting. CNN was forced to admit that DOJ is doing a decent job, that DOJ's findings are meaningful, even if you're a Democrat. Democrats do not want to admit this. They hate this fact.
Musk is claiming $160 billion in estimated savings, obviously with a lot of cuts, but that is way less than was promised. Rob, is it considered a success?
So far, yes, I would say. I mean, remember, DOJ's work isn't going to be completed until July 4th of 2026. We're only 100 days in. So comparatively, when you go back decades and look at the failure of anyone, whether it be in the presidential administration or Congress, to reduce the size of government, you have to go back to, what, Bill Clinton and Newt Gingrich when they had a balanced budget? I'd say yes.
So to you, it was like a necessary fire starter.
Absolutely.
Okay, I want to talk about how Elon Musk thinks of himself.
So, boy, I should keep playing this because it is pretty fascinating. So CNN brings on somebody who says, yes, it's a success. Well, it absolutely is a success because he's uncovered this stuff. You're not going to be able to uncover it. The question will be is it removed? And here's the reality. Just as Joe Biden's cognitive decline, I and many others told you about this going all the way back to 2020. All right, this was not new. So we uncovered it. The problem was the mainstream media, the Democrat Party, didn't remove Joe Biden from the equation and his cognitive decline. We got a national security risk in the Oval Office for 4 years. Now with DOJ, it's the same situation. We've told you about this waste, fraud, and abuse. Remember, you had Tom Coburn's pork book. It went through all of these same things that we were finding, and nobody did anything about it. Not one president said, hey, Tom, come into the office. All of this work that you found, we're going to cancel all of these grants to study transgender mice and all of these things. So they uncover it, but they left it there. It appears that's what's happening now. I'm just out of curiosity. I only pulled it for that clip, but I don't know what she says here, but this is interesting about Elon Musk, so I'm going to listen in.
This is from the Washington Post. Asked who would lead it when he fades, he demurred. Is Buddha needed for Buddhism? Was it not stronger after he passed away?
I just want to sit with that for a moment.
Yeah, let's hold space for that.
Let's hold space for that.
What are they talking about? Hold space for that. So will DOJ get stronger when Elon Musk leaves? You know, honestly, Elon Musk is so brilliant. I do think he is the brains behind DOJ. There's a chance it could get stronger because Elon Musk has become such a lightning rod to all of this, but you still have President Trump there. I don't know whether it becomes stronger or not. I do think his strong personality played a big role in making people take notice of this. I'm going to do everything I can to keep DOJ alive.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, that aside, I think in response to what you were saying, Is it a success? If you consider slashing and burning the federal government with very little oversight and no sense of what comes after that, what is necessary or unnecessary, then perhaps it is a success. If you actually...
But that's not what's happening. And that guy sitting next to her should have chimed in and said, that's not what's happening. We know the ramifications of stopping transgender mice studies. We know the ramifications of stopping payments to the Taliban. And President Trump is the executive officer of the United States, and he has the ability to direct his agencies how to spend their money, unless the money was directly tasked by Congress to go to certain things. That is not the case when it comes to this grant money. She knows that. I'm not going to give her the time of day or play her any more than we already have. But I will give you one more piece of Elon Musk.
I'm just here trying to make government more efficient, eliminate waste and fraud, and so far we're making good progress, actually. So our savings at this point exceed $4 billion a day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very significant.
You think you'll wind up getting to $1 trillion?
Yeah.
Of savings?
I mean, unless we're stopped, we will get to $1 trillion of savings.
And that stuff can be translated. I mean, we've been talking, we had Russell Vogt, the OMB director, on earlier, through very rescission authority, empowerment authority. But I believe you said earlier, it's an audit that will not gather dust on shelves. This is actually going to wind up with real savings, bend the spending baseline down.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. I don't know. Remember, this is a flashback. That's not today. $4 billion savings. We still don't have the CBO taking this into account when they come up with the projections for the big, beautiful bill. It should. Why not? And then I would offer this up. If you find waste of $300 billion in an agency like the Pentagon, why doesn't the $300 billion instantly get taken off of their budget? Instantly. So if they got, $400 billion one year, then they should get, say it's $3 billion savings, then they should get $397 billion the next year. Okay? If you find that kind of waste, billions of dollars from an agency, why isn't their budget deducted the billions that you found in waste? And it is that easy. Don't let members of Congress tell you, oh, Grant, it's not that easy. Well, why? Ask them, why isn't it that easy? Because that's the way it's always been done. That's not a good enough answer for me. That is when people are stuck in bureaucratic cement shoes and can't move a nation forward when they tell you, well, that's the way it's done. Well, then change the way it's done. All right? If I find that the Department of Education wasted $3 billion and they don't need $3 billion, then if your budget was $100 billion, now it'll be 97. And if we find another billion, then it'll be 96. And that's how you move forward. But again, in Washington, they take inflation and they take this and they increase the budget. Every year gets increased to take into account of all these things. No. Freeze the levels of payments and tell these agencies to deal with it. Figure out a way to keep your agency going at the same rate that we were paying you last year. And if we found fraud, we're going to deduct that. So it's got to be found at the same rate we paid you minus the deductions. It's that simple. Stop with the increased payments for inflation. They don't need it. Deal with it. That's what companies do. Companies have to deal with it. Now, President Trump has given the United States a gift, finding more ways to come up with revenue by instituting tariffs and those kinds of things. That all, in my opinion, is a good thing. All right. Kash Patel goes on Fox News. What about Epstein? What about moving the headquarters? Are we disappointed in what's happening at the FBI? They've been very quiet. There's not a lot going on. I am. I wanted more. I think if you ask Kash and Dan privately, Dan Bongino, I think they would tell you they're somewhat disappointed at the pace as well. Publicly, I don't think they can say that. So let's go through some of these interviews that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino conducted over the last couple of days here in just a moment. But before we do, Energize Health, intracellular hydration, getting your body hydrated at a cellular level. I lost 15 pounds on the first 2 weeks on the Energized Health System. I felt better and feel better than I ever have before because my body is finally hydrated at a cellular level. That increases my immune system functions. It helps me burn fat at a very higher rate. This is scientifically proved. It helps me build muscle mass. This is why I talk about it. You don't want to lose weight. What you want to lose is fat, and you want to build muscle. At any age, by the way, including if you're 85 years old, you still want to try to build muscle if you can. And Energized Health will help you do that, and you don't have to kill yourself. This is not some crazy workout scheme or crazy diet scheme. This is about finding a groove that literally transforms your life, and I urge you to get in touch with them. EnergizedHealth.com. EnergizedHealth.com changed my life from a mind, body, soul perspective, okay? And it is based in Christian values as well, this protocol. I urge you to try it. If you feel like you got to lose some pounds, whether it's 200 pounds or 20 pounds, Energized Health can help you. EnergizedHealth.com. There's a free master class on there and hundreds of testimonials. Go pay them a visit and take your life back before it's too late. All right. Kash Patel on with Brett Baer. Epstein. What's the deal with Epstein? First and foremost, do you believe them when they tell us Epstein killed himself? I don't. Maybe there is new evidence that we know, and Dan Bongino will get into that apparently there's video on the floor, not of the cell, but on the floor, and they don't see anybody coming and going. That doesn't mean somebody couldn't have come out of an air duct or a door they have put into the back of the cell and covered up. I don't know. All these conspiracy things run through my head, so it doesn't necessarily prove it, but I do know this. You had the guards that fell asleep. You had him taken off suicide watch when he should have been on suicide watch just days before the suicide. You had the cameras go out. You have the autopsy that says that his throat is not consistent with a hanging. It's consistent with strangulation due to how the cartilage and bones were broken in his neck. All of this raises a lot of questions to me, including the blackmail operation that I believe Epstein was a part of, quite possibly run by the government. Who's behind it? Before I play you Cash's soundbite, this is what I believe is behind the lack of information from Epstein. I believe there was a federal government blackmail operation going on, and that if it was revealed who was involved in having sex with minors, thanks to Epstein and Maxwell, that this could not just be big-time international players. It could be Make America Great Again players. It could be half the members of Congress involved in this. And it's so big that for our own national security, they don't want to release the names because it would literally sink global markets and our ability to govern. That's a real possibility here, a real possibility. So maybe the prosperity of America and safety of America outweighs our right to know. I'm not saying it does. I'm saying that may be the assessment here. Maybe that's why we're getting not quite the whole story from two men I have great respect for, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. So with that, let's listen to Kash.
There are. The Epstein thing, you dealt with Maria. You said, as far as you know, he killed himself.
I'm telling you, he killed himself.
The other thing on the internet is the Epstein files. What's the answer to that?
The answer to that is the same as everything else. I'm not going to withhold information from the American public ever, but I'm also not going to rush to get it out there in a format in which they can't rely on it. So on the Epstein matter or any other matters, we are diligently working on that, and it takes time to go through years of investigations, years of political maneuvering, and years of cover-up to get the American people what they deserve. And that's what I'm going to give them on everything.
Yeah.
All right, and notice, for all of you out there that's going to say, oh, Grant, show them some grace. Investigations take a long time. Notice he's not talking about going after the perpetrators. He's talking about going through the information to release it. He's not talking about his criminal investigation. And I actually don't believe there's a criminal investigation going on. Why was Epstein the only one charged? Why weren't the people that were having sex with minors also charged? I believe they're the rich and powerful, and the government made a decision to stay away from them. And even this government is making a decision to stay away from them because for whoever's assessment says we're better off as a society that we don't know versus we do know. Now, I'm going to make this very clear, and I made it clear before. I do not believe that this includes President Trump. I've studied this inside out. President Trump does not have the connections to Epstein that the left wants to make him out to. He's been upset with Epstein in the past. He kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. There's no way President Trump's involved in this. But as to who else could be involved in this, I think members of Congress, I think world leaders, I think this could go to NATO. The sky is the limit. And so this is why it's getting buried. It's why Democrats and Republican leadership wanted to bury this thing. And so, again, don't tell me this is about them making a case. I don't think this has anything to do with them making a case. I think this has everything to do with, well, it is, in some respects, covering up what really happened in their minds for the good of America. Nobody's going to tell Dan Bongino or Kash Patel what to say or do unless they think it's the right move. They'll resign before that. They don't need the work, okay? They're there because they want to serve our country. So they will resign if they don't agree with the requests that are being made from them. Let me just make that very, very clear. Here's Kash Patel on the FBI headquarters. Now, remember, he came on with me on Real America's Voice Show and on numerous occasions said, we're going to move FBI headquarters. We're going to close the doors. We're going to move them to Des Moines, Iowa, right in the middle of the country, or Oklahoma City or Dallas or someplace like that, and let agents get out in the field and do their thing, stop being politicized. Apparently, that's not happening.
Say you want to move out of that building, where would the new headquarters be?
I can tell you that we are in the process of moving out. We've just worked out the final logistics to begin that process, and we are actually in line with keeping the American taxpayer dollars on mission, shuttering about 6 different offices the FBI has in the D.C. area, and we're moving to our new location within the D.C. area, and that process has already started.
Which is where? Maryland?
We're staying in Washington, D.C., right next to our partners at the Department of Justice, and we're getting out of the Hoover building. I have cargo nets holding up the cement structures of the exterior of the Hoover building because it catches falling cement and prevents it from hitting someone in the head. I'm not making that up. Why no one in the past decided to address that standard or lack of standard and make that building unsafe is beyond me, but we're addressing it.
All right, so listen. I don't want FBI agents or any agent or any federal worker going into a building where we're going to have a cement block fall on their head. But this is not why we wanted the Hoover building shut down. We wanted the Hoover building shut down because we wanted the FBI out of D.C. and the possibility for political persuasion to infect D.C.'s headquarters, for the swamp to reinfect itself and reinvigorate itself inside that storied agency, the FBI. We wanted it out of D.C., not because the building is falling apart, but because it's been weaponized. So, Kash, I appreciate that you're moving, but you're moving into D.C., like right next to the DOJ. Fine, I get that's where a reasonable person would think you'd put FBI headquarters. But, Kash, you were no normal cat, man. It was your idea to move this thing to the middle of the country. Now, if they're saying no, or Pam Bondi's overruled you, or it's going to cost too much and the feasibility isn't there, then just tell us that. But don't act like we're shutting the Hoover building down, living up to your promise and moving in next to the building next door. I mean, that's not what we wanted. Now, again, I have so much respect for Kash and so much respect for Dan Bongino. One of the callers to my radio program called me earlier today and said, hey, Grant, are you going to text Dan and Kash and tell them to get with the program? Are you going to tell them this is not what you promised? Are you going to stay? I said, no, I'm not going to text them that. Now, I may have concerns, but I also, like I give President Trump, great leeway to do their job, to do his job, because I trust him. I also trust Cash and Dan. And I promise you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, those two men are not compromised. Are they giving us the whole story? I don't think they are. But they're not doing anything they don't agree with. There's no way Dan Bongino does that, and there's no way Kash Patel does that. So they have good reasons for what they're doing. It may not be what we all wanted, but I promise you, in their opinion, they believe they're doing what's best for us. Okay? So am I texting them? No. That's the last thing you want from your buddy, from your friend, is texting him, hey, come on, get with the pro. You don't think they're getting that enough from people that aren't their buddies? I'm not doing it. It's not the way I roll. I have loyalty until someone shows me that they don't deserve my loyalty anymore. And I can tell you this, Cash and Dan are the real deal. I could text Cash, I could text Dan, and within an hour or two, I'd get a text back. If they're by the phone, I get a text back minutes later. There's plenty of people I know that have went to work for the administration now that I may not get a text back from. Things go to their heads. They get in the administration, and next thing you know, they big time you. That is not the personality of Kash Patel and Dan Bongino at all. I promise you that. And I speak from experience on that one. All right, what about Dan? Dan did an interview on Fox News this morning, and I was fascinated with that interview. So I want to go through some of it, play for it with a little commentary in between, because what Dan Bongino had to say was interesting of where he goes. Before that, though, look, folks, Patriot Mobile, patriotmobile.com/Grant. That's the website I want you to go to. Why? Because it's America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. If you're still with the other big three cell phone companies, you know that you're helping to fund the woke agenda. These are woke companies, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile. They practice in DEI craziness. If you want to go with a company that supports the values we do, that supports programs like this, outlets like this one and Real America's Voice and The Blaze, Patriot Mobile is right there. Every single conservative cause, whenever there's a function, I go there. Patriot Mobile is there supporting that cause. That's where your money goes. PatriotMobile.com/Grant, 972-PATRIOT. And oh, by the way, the service is the exact same when it comes to the actual service. You choose what network you want to be on, whether it's the AT&T or Verizon network. You choose it, okay? Customer service is better because they're all 100% U.S.-based. The company is smaller, so there's a little more individual attention than you're going to get in any of these big companies. Switching is super easy. I've done it numerous times to hook phones up with Patriot Mobile. It's a nothing deal. So if you're worried about that or that's what's holding you back, throw that out the window. PatriotMobile.com/Grant, 972-PATRIOT. Use the promo code GRANT for a free month service. You tell them Grant Stinchfield sent you. Again, that promo code is GRANT, 972-PATRIOT. Do it today. Don't wait any longer. All right. So Dan and Cash, I think, are trying to rebuild the image of the FBI, and it needs rebuilding. There's no doubt about it in my mind that it needs rebuilding. They're having a hard time doing this because as they do this, they take a little bit away from their own brand because we get hesitation from them on things. We get them saying things that we didn't expect them to say. So this has got to be really hard for Cash and Dan. But this is Dan Bongino on Fox and Friends this morning.
Great to see all of you. First off, before we get into specifics, what did you think the job was going to be like? What is it like?
You know, the biggest lifestyle change for me has been family-wise. I mean, we already went through this with my time in the Secret Service. But, you know, when the president called and asked if I would take the job, you know, you can't tell your audience for years, go out and do stuff, talk is cheap. And then when the opportunity comes to do stuff, I didn't mean me, you know, I meant you. It's kind of you're a fraud. I mean, you don't sound like a fraud, you are one. So it was a lot. It's been tough on the family. People ask me all the time, you know, do you like it? I say, no, I don't. But I didn't, the president asked me to do this to like it. You know, nobody likes going into an organization like that and having to change things and make big, bold changes. But, you know, I was at one of our facilities yesterday down in Winchester, And a woman who worked there, very nice, said, I used to watch your show. I miss you. I said, I miss me too. Part of you, part of you dies a little bit when you see all this stuff from behind the scenes.
You're doing this for country, so we appreciate that, and we thank.
So that's interesting in and of itself that he misses the radio. I think he misses his ability to speak truth. Once you go in, and even he will acknowledge this, once you go into an agency like this, it's not your own show. You are basically speaking for the president. You can't do anything that's going to damage the president in any way, shape, or form. So you got to be very careful about how you choose your words. It's very different from a show like this one or a podcast like this. I relate it to when I used to work for the National Rifle Association and did a show like this. I did a show. I got to do a lot of things, but I always had to choose my words very carefully because I knew if I slipped up, it wasn't just me. It was the National Rifle Association. This is how Dan and Cash have to look at it. It's not just him, but it's President Trump, and quite frankly, it's America and an entire agency.
Thank you, and we're excited to find out, to roll back the curtain and find out what's deep in the FBI. We have so many questions about those 3 cases we just mentioned. Y'all are doing a deep dive into this. What's the latest on those investigations?
So the moment Cash and I swore in, we realized that the first thing we had to do is rebuild public trust. This is your FBI. It's not mine. I tell the employees every day, you don't own it, you don't own it, I don't own it. It's like being the center fielder for the Yankees. That'll live with you forever, but you don't own the Yankees. It's a proud franchise. The place has taken a reputational hit. There is zero question about it. There were a lot of bad actors. One of them still out there causing us all kinds of trouble. So we had to fix it and rebuild public trust. One of the ways to do it is these cases of significant public interest that matter. We had 2 pipe bombs planted on January 6th. I mean, we were told by partisan actors out there this was the insurrection, the world was going to fall apart, and no one seemed to show any interest in this case. The second we got in, I put a team on it, and I said, I want answers on this, and I'm pretty confident that we're closing in on some suspects. The reason, by the way, I use social media with these cases, I'm trying to communicate on social media, is nothing's by accident, guys. I do nothing by accident. Every time I put a tweet out on it, we get tips. We got a fascinating tip on one of these cases, one of the 3. I don't want to say which one, but I'm pretty confident that we're going to close out one of them, hopefully shortly. And then the cocaine in the White House.
So before we get to cocaine in the White House, Darren Beattie of Revolver News was instrumental in continuing to expose what was going on around the pipe bombs. Many of you may not even know there were pipe bombs on January 6th outside the Republican and Democrat headquarters in D.C. It appears it was a giant setup by the federal government. To me, Darren Beattie is now working with the Justice Department. And so I believe his work inside the Justice Department will help get to the bottom of all of this with the resources that now he'll be granted, not just as a journalist, but now an insider. And so, they got a big job ahead of them. Epstein's the other one, cocaine in the White House, President Trump's assassination. All of these things are things we want answers on. Russian collusion. I don't necessarily need answers on Russian collusion. What I need on Russian collusion is people to pay. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think statute of limitations has run out. Now, you could make an argument it's treasonous. But I don't know if our federal government, even under President Trump, if Pam Bondi has the stones to charge someone with treason when it comes to that.
I saw someone on social media, which is fine. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. We work for you, but said, I don't care about the case. Yeah, I do. I was a Secret Service agent. A potentially hazardous material made its way into the White House. Nobody seems to know how it got there, and nobody seemed to investigate it fully. What planet do we live on where that's not of public interest?
So you're faced with this interesting thing. I've known you since I was a kid, and I know your instinct is to swing back, but you promised that you weren't going to do that. You promised that you were going to get rid of the partisanship, and you were going to go back to being a law enforcement officer.
Yeah.
You went in there, and there were some cases that were closed or still open that a lot of the public felt a little sketchy about. The first assassination attempt against President Donald Trump. It's like, is he really the guy? What happened with Epstein? Can you say with confidence, as a lot of public, you used to be their guy when it comes to podcasts, appearing on Fox News, but now as a law enforcement officer, can you say we have all the information?
Well, I'm never going to say we have all of it. And people ask me all the time, are these cases closed? And whether they're closed administratively is irrelevant. If new tips come in, we're absolutely going to follow them. And that's why I always put out, if you have additional information, please let us know. Those two cases obviously are of significant public interest. I'm just telling you what we see in the file. I just want to be crystal clear on this. I am not asking anyone to believe me. I'm telling you what's there and what isn't.
Right.
There is nothing in the file at this point on the Epstein case, and there's going to be a disclosure on this coming shortly. We are working through there is video. That is something the public does not.
There's video of him killing himself.
No, not the actual act, but the entire MCC Bay, it was only one camera. There's video that when you look at the video, and we will release, that's what's taken a while on this, we are working on cleaning it up to make sure you have an enhanced, and we're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans. You're going to see there's no one there but him.
Right.
There's just nobody there. So I say to people all the time, if you have a tip, let us know. But there's no DNA, there's no audio, there's no fingerprints, there's no suspects, there's no accomplices, there's no tips, there is nothing. If you have it, I'm happy to see it. There's video clear as day. He's the only person in there and the only person coming out. You can see it.
So there's 3 cases.
So that's interesting because it's a far cry from where Dan Bongino was before. Now, I understand there was a camera down, but now we're told there's a camera that was up, but we were never told that before. Wouldn't that have been in the best interest of even the previous administration to acknowledge there was another camera that had at least the entrance to Epstein's cell on camera or in view? We were never told that. So I don't know what to believe anymore. And so do I think Dan is lying to us? No, I don't. When Dan says there's no files, no witnesses, no suspects, is that because the files don't exist anymore? Because they were destroyed? I don't know. Maybe. But I could tell you, look, not to hang Dan out to dry, because I don't want to do that. But this is what people will pass around on the internet, is the difference from then and now, 2023 to 2025.
Listen, that Jeffrey Epstein story is a big deal. Please do not let that story go. Keep your eye on this. Catherine Rumler, we need to keep the heat on this case, folks. There are a lot of people who are knee deep in the Washington swamp who are not telling you the truth about serious allegations out there that Epstein may have had video and audio of people out there doing things they shouldn't have been doing. And you should be asking yourself the question, how is it that all these people, the CIA director, the Obama fixer, Bill Clinton, all intersected paths with Jeffrey Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein isn't with us anymore, and nobody seems to want to talk about it, outside of a few entrepreneurial media outlets saying, hey, this is a big deal.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
All right, so in some respects, the clip I just played you, when you now think about it for the second or third time I've played it for myself, Dan Bongino's talking about two different things. One, he's talking about the Epstein case. So, again, where are the charges against the others who raped and had sex with minors? Okay? Where? We know there were princes. We know that Clinton had ongoings with Epstein. We know there's a whole slew of other. Where are they? Why aren't we going after those people? How do you have just Epstein and nobody else, none of the other perpetrators in all of this are hauled in? Why? And so he names all of those Democrats. And so if you believe him there, you'd say, okay, well, that explains why Joe Biden didn't want to go after Epstein. Maybe there's a whole slew of big-time Republicans that are involved in it. And I don't think President Trump is one of them. Again, I'll make that clear over and over again. But maybe half of Congress is. Maybe it goes to NATO. Maybe it goes to the European Union. Maybe this is a world scandal. And it will come out that the CIA was running a honeypot operation through Epstein. And that can't be exposed for national security reasons, for allies that we caught up in something, that we should have been spying on allies through Epstein. Maybe it's so big with such ramifications. This is why now they're not talking about it. I don't know. But that is my assessment that Dan Bongino has his reasonings. Very different from who killed Epstein. Honestly, he's dead now. Who cares, really, in the end? Did he kill himself? Was he murdered? What's the difference? What I want to know is who is involved with the trafficking of these minors, sex with these minors. What was it used for? Was it a blackmail operation? Did it have political ramifications? Did world leaders change their views, thoughts, or attitudes towards the United States, either in a positive or negative way because of these blackmail tapes? All of these things is what I need to know about Epstein. And maybe our need to know in the minds of Bongino, Kash Patel, President Trump, Pam Bondi, Joe Biden, his attorney general, maybe they all agree. It's too big for the public to know. I have a hard time swallowing that, but that's the only way I can explain this.
This is that you're looking at the D.C. pipe bombings, the Supreme Court leak on the Dobbs decision, and the cocaine in the White House. You say one of them, within a day or two, we're going to have a major break?
Well, we got a good tip this morning. We're going to run it out. We're not going to be able to make that public, obviously, right away, because we have to make sure. And, we have to go all the proper steps. What I don't want to do ever, and I've said this before, it's not an excuse. I can't say to the public enough. I put it in my tweets all the time. I'm not asking you to trust me. Nothing drives me crazy when people go, they're asking us to trust a plan. I am absolutely not. Read my tweets. I don't want you to trust me. I don't. I'd be nice.
You have evidence.
All I care about is results.
So let's talk about what the president wants. He clearly wants a result when he told Brett Baier on the assassination attempt. He's got questions on the first one. Watch.
There's a lot of frustration that we still don't know about that shooter in Butler. And we don't know about his communications. Will we get transparency?
I thought it was strange. The one guy had 18 cell phones. Okay. I have a lot of cell phones, but I have like 2. I call that a lot. And I think I probably make more calls than him. They live outside of Butler in a little place. Where did they get this lawyer that would represent IBM and would represent ExxonMobil?
But you're the president. Can't you find out?
No, Secret Service. They tell me it's fine. But it's a little hard to believe, to be honest with you, okay? It's a little bit hard to believe as I get that throbbing feeling.
So, Dan, the question is that a lot of people have wondered is, did this kid have help? He could not have pulled it off by himself. Was there a foreign actor? Did someone provide him with the weapons? Was there chatter online?
Well, let's be clear here. There are 2 separate parallel tracks here. Foreign actors targeting people in the United States. And it's not just the president, it's others. That is a very real track. The question is, do they intersect? The case file now, which, by the way, we are going to make another public release on this coming up. We're just kind of finishing up the product now to make sure it's tight and put together. You're going to see a lot of what you've heard about online does not exist in the case file. I'm not telling you information may not surface later. We do the PDB, the President's Daily Brief. We get the same brief, me and Kash, every morning. We have warned people out, telling them if there's something there we want to find. They have shaken every tree on this.
You mean you talked to his classmates, you talked to his family, you've talked to everyone? Because they burned the body, cremated, and they cleaned the whole house out.
Yeah, and here's the thing. There are, like with the Epstein case, for example, we have a number of significantly odd abnormalities that would make a normal person go, huh? What? Mm-hmm. If Lawrence is near his bank at 4 o'clock and the bank gets robbed, but we know Lawrence reported to work afterwards and has an alibi, the fact that the bank was robbed, it's a fact that Lawrence was there, but it's not evidence that Lawrence committed the crime. Mm-hmm. Things, really, really bad things happened in this case. But when you see the report we're going to release, you'll see that not everything you've been told is true. But the president is not wrong at all. I mean, he's entirely, he was shot in the head. Yep. He was shot in the head, got up and screaming, fight, fight. Of course he's going to want answers, but that's our responsibility. And nothing's ever closed, though. If new evidence surfaces, we'll be sure to get it out.
There were just things that were strange. The slope roof thing, the guy was on his bicycle roaming around, never caught, never seen. Let's talk about something that's been in the news this morning.
So, again, all of it raises the questions to me. I'm not totally satisfied with Dan's answer. But, again, he told us it's not that we have to trust him. We can keep asking questions. He knows that's my job. And I promise you, Dan and Kash Patel know that when they're saying these things, they're going to say he's going to go home. Oh, man. Stinchfield, Charlie Kirk, Benny Johnson, they're going to be on us for this. They're going to be honest. They know, and it's part of the gig. They're big boys. They can handle it. They also have my full support. They really do, and thank God they're there as opposed to others. I do not think they're compromised. I saw some of those tweets in there. I do not think that's the case. I just don't think those two guys, of all guys, have the ability to be compromised. All right, folks. Lastly, before I let you go, you know I like to tell you about my friends over at the Wellness Company. Listen to me. Whether you need a camping trip or you need a bug out trip, this is the giant field kit that is really only available from the Wellness Company, and it's fabulous. Let me just show you what's inside of this kit here, by the way. You've got steroids in here. You've got an EpiPen in here. You've got numerous antibiotics, antiparasitics, ivermectin, you name it. If you're going to need it, it's going to be in this kit. This is the mother of all prescription medication kits, including steroids, I think I mentioned. There's a handy guidebook to teach you how to use it all, and I urge you, this is a must-have for anybody that's going out, certainly into the wilderness, or really wants to be prepared for the ultimate. TWC.health/grant. Use the promo code GRANT. If you just want to be prepared for if the drugstore closes down, drug shortages or power outages, this is the smaller kit. I've got both kits. Obviously, I just showed you. But this is a great one to start with. TWC.health/grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 10% off. That's going to do it for us. We will talk to you soon. Stinchfield's Army rolls. Thanks to all of you, folks. We'll see you on the Real America's Voice show tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Stinchfield's Army rolls. Thanks for watching, everybody.